And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of 17 and Some Change. I'm EQDez17, here to bring you my 2 cents. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, and narcissism. Typically a hot topic. Um, Especially in the past few years. It's kind of a mainstream, uh, trendy type of thing to talk about. It's something that you hear all over the place, and even that very introduction to the topic is one that you hear uh, pretty often as well. Myself, I am I'm a borderline, so um, we naturally uh, attract narcissists. This is a well documented phenomena. Um, I believe that nearly every meaningful relationship I've ever had um, or been has been with a narcissist. Um, I I've spent dozens of hours researching um, disorder and cross-referencing what I'm seeing in real time versus what I'm seeing online. And um, so yeah, I've watched all the self-aware individuals speaking on it. I've watched the doctors speaking on it. Um, I'm familiar with it in the DSM-5, and um, yeah, I it's one of those topics like if you have been affected by it, you kind of know the deal. And if you haven't, I don't know. I don't know. I got a Q&A though for this episode. I put together a Q&A. Um and that's what we're gonna run through. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here that we can talk about. Um, yeah, I don't. There's no really. I wasn't planning on touching on any other like newses from the week. Um, Superman's coming out soon. Hopefully, I can get you guys a review for that. Um, you know, I wanted to watch that for a while. I liked Superman. You know. Um, but yeah, so today I was just gonna go into I was just gonna go into the Q&A directly today. So um, let's kind of do that. The first question it asked was so actually um, the first 5 questions, I believe it's the first five. The first 5 questions on here are kind of personalized to me. It's like, how did you realize this? How do you feel about blah blah blah? But then I caught I was catching on to that trend. So I asked for the next 20 questions to be like more universally applicable, as if I was like talking to somebody else and stuff like that. All right. Yeah, so I'm over here. Where am I? That when did you first begin to suspect that someone in your life might have narcissistic personality traits, and what specific behavior made you start questioning it? Um, I said I mean, I didn't know what it was until I was an adult. Um, like the first time I've heard of it was kind of like, oh, okay, so that's somebody with like a big ego. That's somebody who like likes attention. That's somebody who's a little obnoxious sometimes. Like, okay, yeah, narcissist. Okay, cool. That's relatively applicable to some people I know, right? Um, the world revolves around them type stuff, right? Um, yeah. And then kind of like in my later 20s, I in my mid 20s ish, I started that's when I would became familiarized with like the DSM criteria and hold on one second. Um and also um like the extent of what it actually entails, like how devastating of a phenomena of a situation it can be. Um, yeah, that wasn't until my later 20s. Um, and I was cross referencing in real life. I was like, wow, that person. That's um. I said once you understood the full DSM definition of MPD, which traits hit the hardest. I mean, the one that first and foremost usually comes to mind is self entitlement, seeing themselves as the center of the universe, um, and there 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 is some power. There is some power to that. Um, but the more you wield power, the less you incorporate everything else. Um, and if you need if you need to operate that way to survive, um, if you need to see yourself as the number one goal, the number one everything, as like a survival mechanism, like fair enough. But then you can't turn around and expect to have the people that you look at as NPCs admire you in the long run. You can't expect to have, I should say, meaningful relationships with people that you view as NPCs. And you can't expect or be surprised when um, these people that you treat as NPCs turn on you, right? So when you look back on your past, how do you think living with or under the influence of a narcissistic person, people affected your own ability to trust your emotions, instincts? Um, I mean, for me personally, it was something that sharpened and distorted my abilities to trust my instincts at the same time. Um, like in an overall context, when it comes to like minor mundane interactions, um, or like in a relationship context, um it's kind of um had me questioning things, but when it comes to identifying narcissism and narcissistic and toxic type behaviors and people, I'm pretty much 10 for 10 when I decide to engage in that. And when you can predict the future, that when you can predict the future actions um, based on your interpretation of if you call them a narc and you say, well, a narc would do this and then they do this, time after time, that's a good way to tell that you're diagnosing well. They called me in. I gotta go for a stinky training today. I don't know what the training's about, but it was like my last day off before like 6,000 hours that I'm gonna be putting in. Um, just kind of like when you just kind of when something just kind of like throws off your rhythm. Um, have you ever found yourself? And I've been thinking about this topic a lot for the past few days too. Not this question, but like this topic that we're going over. Um, I've been thinking about this shit a lot for the last few days and stuff like that too, you know. And it says, have you ever found yourself questioning whether you might be the narcissist, especially after prolonged exposure to their accusations, deflections, or manipulations? If so, how did you work through that doubt? Have you ever found yourself questioning whether you might be the narcissist? Um, definitely, definitely. Um, I have seen, I have seen narcissistic traits in myself, and the more I try to put myself um, forward into the world, the more I try to carve out peace and space for myself, the more narcissistic I need to become. Um, but it's not that it's the more self-preserving I need to become, and that kind of gets those words can't necessarily be intertwined. Like um, so let me just read what I put. Like um, I can. behave in ways that cause harm and like not recognize it in the moment. I can be hot and cold with people. I can love bomb people as a borderline, and I can switch on them as a borderline. My emotional empathy can be distorted based on my emotional state. Um, so like if I'm in a bad mood, I'm gonna feel less empathetic in general. Um, but um, the thing that separates me um from the narcissist is the access to emotional empathy in general. Um, so sorry, I was just getting caught up on that distortion point of the empathy and how it's not consistent. It's not consistent throughout time and scenarios. Like my empathy is kind of selective. You know what I mean? Um, like if I'm frustrated, my empathy is a lot lower than when I'm not. You know, and when you throw like specific love interests into it, then like it can throw off things for everybody else. Meaning, like, if I'm like infatuated with somebody in particular, then I start looking, I can, unless I look out for it and actively try to prevent it, I can start viewing the people around them as either obstacles or helpers. Like, like I can start like when I if I become like infatuated with somebody, I start looking at like everybody else like in relation to that person and that really changes like the way like I can make an enemy real quick out of somebody who I think is like, not having the best interest for somebody that or not even that, like it doesn't even have to be that serious, just like um I don't know, I just kind of start seeing people as they and feeling for people as they relate to my specific love interest. But like the difference in general is like having access to emotional empathy. Like I can be snapped out of that, um um like when I realize like people are in pain, it causes me pain. Like I feel that shit gutturally. Like I feel that shit in my bones, like in my core. Like I'm the type of person like I cry like in movies and shit. Um, sometimes like seeing pain in people's eyes makes me tear up. Like I really feel deeply for humans, and when I see suffering, like that really does bother me. It's something that I've always taken personally. I mean, my behaviors can be manipulative insofar as I don't recognize them, and I'm trying to, regulate my own self states and my own emotions and stuff like that. Like I said, mainly like hot and cold behaviors and like idealizing people and then devaluing them and stuff like that, and like just generally not knowing which boxes to put people in. But that is different than not like caring about them, or not like, I recognize my mistakes. Like I'll admit that like when I don't know things, like I say I don't know things like all the time. You know what I mean? And like I've always been drawn towards like authenticity. Like so there's a lot of reasons there that I'm not like them. You know what I mean? Um Accountability, empathy, um I mean, I think those two are enough, but I think I named more in my spiel, in what I was saying. So, um, have you ever tried confronting the narcissistic person in your life directly about their behavior? If so, how did they respond, and how did it affect your relationship from that point forward? Um, I mean, not my proudest moment. Like yeah, I've tried to put some of them in their place. Like um, like it doesn't matter. They're just gonna deflect and blame and circulate and minimize and gaslight. Like they're just gonna start dancing like somebody, like if you're shooting at somebody's legs and they like a cartoon and it starts dancing, like that's just what they're gonna do. It's just boo boo boop and dance around everything, be mad at you for bringing it up and shit like that. Um, so, but lucky is you if you can buy yourself some space with some hard truth. Like if you can insult their ego enough with the cold hard, like yo, you're just a fucking, like you just suck as a human being. Like you fucking suck. Um, that can buy you some time where they might like not want to get their ego hurt again, so they kind of stay away from you. But that's gonna turn into vitriol for sure. Either that, or they're just gonna like wait, wait, find Hoover, find that opportunity, bang bang, try back in. Like, oh, I heard X and X died. How you feeling about the? You okay? I'm sorry you misunderstood me. This is where I ask, like, let's change some of the direction of these questions to be more for like the consumer, like the audience and stuff. So it's like, alright, why is it so hard for people to recognize they're in a relationship, family, romantic, or otherwise, with someone who has narcissistic traits? What are the early signs that some people tend to ignore or even mistake for strengths? I said it's hard because they can be very dramatic in their presentation of the truth. They're highly delusional individuals. They continuously delude themselves, and a lot of times they sound convincing because they are indeed themselves convinced. Furthermore, while their bag of tricks is repetitive, once you understand it, um, they um, it's still it's a relatively deep bag of tricks, and typically what they do is they'll throw them in rapid succession, right? And so the gaslighting, the diffusing, the blame shifting, like it'll all come within the course of like bam bam, like back to back if they have to, right? They'll stagger it if they need to, but they got this bag of tricks, and they'll just, oh, I didn't know. Oh, I didn't. Nobody told me. Wow, if I had known, type shit. Like, um, and you'd be like, oh, we did tell you. No, no, no. Um, no, you didn't. No, you never did. It's like, no, here's the text right here. Yeah, but like check the time or some shit like um that wasn't me. That wasn't me. Um well, it was a stupid party anyways. You shouldn't have invited me. How dare you bring this type of shit up? Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum. Their mind literally can't comprehend accountability. Um, what advice? See, I like this part. I like this second half better. Like, what advice would you give someone who's just starting to question whether someone close to them is narcissistic, but they feel unsure or guilty for even thinking that way? I said go online, you know, start researching things, don't stop at narcissism, don't stop at narcissism, kind of. um it's Some people say, oh, we're looking for toxic, we're looking for toxicity, not necessarily narcissism. But to me, it's like narcissism embodies every toxic trait you can embody. So, um just about, I mean, outside of, you know um extreme sadism, which is typically more left for the psychopath. But, like, the distinction between like toxic people and narcissists, it's like I'm looking for narcissists because they have the most toxic traits. So, like, um but yeah, like, there there is a distinction to be made between narcissistic slash toxic individuals versus individuals who do have narcissistic personality disorder. But I would say, yeah, don't stop at narcissism. Look into psychopathy and borderline and histrionics and, bipolar and, autism, and, look at yourself, and just do research, and be patient, and kind of take notes, cross reference shit. It's just it that's something that you should kind of pay attention to, for sure. Um, Also, yeah. And it's funny, like, my professor told me, like, if you're looking for narcissism everywhere, you're gonna see it everywhere. And it's like, yeah, well, we kind of do live in a narcissistic society. Um, but and like it is everywhere. It is everywhere. Um, but I don't know if we'll get into it with one of the questions later, but like, um I think we do, like, how to differentiate the traits from the disorder. Um Common traps that people fall into when trying to heal from a relationship with a narcissist. Probably keeping hope that things could be different. You know, you want to excuse the snake for being a snake, and you can excuse the snake for being a snake, but if you sat down for a few sessions and tried to create a list of all the abusive or bullshit things that you specifically remember the narcissist doing, um, you can push 100 instances. Let's say you have 65 instances of severe neglect and abuse and trauma inducing behavior from your spouse or your guardian or whatever it may be. So you say, well, I've been bit by this snake 65 times. So, like, you know what I mean? It's like you don't continuously open your door. You don't expect anything else. You should never expect anything else. Like, I don't know what it is about this disorder. And philosophically, you can say, oh, well, it depends on what framework you're looking at the world in. If you're looking at the world through a survival framework, then narcissism is very beneficial and very helpful. And it's like, it is the embodiment of evilness. And if you're looking at the world from a moral framework, narcissism is literally like all the things that represent darkness and evil and bad shit, right? So there's that. Um, and I don't want to riff too much outside of what I put down for answers on these because I don't want to start repeating myself throughout the the episode because I know I have um, questions in here that that open up deeper parts of this conversation, right? So I don't want to. I want to kind of stick to the questions because I don't want to get into a tangent and then come to find out like a handful of things that I touched on in my tangent are answers to future questions and things like that. There's this little tiny spider who's in my general vicinity, and it's really kind of not the coolest thing in the world because I've seen how fast that douche disappears. Like he's a jumper. Like all of a sudden he's here and then boom and then phew, he just disappears to somewhere. And I don't really like that. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Hopefully he leaves me the hell alone. But it says um what are some signs you're starting to heal from narcissistic abuse, even if the pain is still there? What does early healing actually look like? I told the GPT that I don't want to get too deep into that line of questioning because I'm still in the process of cutting webs from multiple directions, but it is as though your soul begins to breathe. So that's a decent way that I can describe that. Um, what's one behavior or phrase narcissists often use that people should take as a major red flag, but often don't? Um, I love you. But no, like pretty much anything out of their mouth. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's pretty much anything out of their mouth is a lie, so I don't know really how to answer that. So, in your experience, what's the difference between someone who's toxic but unaware and someone who's a true narcissist? See, I knew we'd come back around to this. And to me, this one is the frequency. The narcissist seems to check every single box of toxicity over and over again within the same session. It's indefinite with the narcissist. It's incessant. It's 24/7 repeating of patterns. It's a non-stop pathology. It's forever. It's a 3-year old constant. Like it says, why do narcissists seem to get worse over time instead of mellowing out or becoming more reflective, like most people do with age? And I said it's typically because they can't get supply as easily as they age. They adore admiration, and it's harder for people to garner admiration as they age and decline in health and capabilities. Um, the ironic thing is that if they were to age gracefully without ego, that would get them their own, that would get its own sort of admiration. But I guess if they lived their life in any way, shape, or form, like detached from their ego, they would garner more actual admiration. But um, what are some ways a narcissist's tactics change with age, or what do they look like when they're no longer getting the same attention they once did? Um, I think they they use intimidation as a tool a lot less frequently because they know there's less people they can intimidate without getting beat up, um, without getting knocked out. Yeah, they especially like the smarter ones, they will use intimidation as a tool less and less. Yeah. They'll shift more to guilt, martyrdom, emotional manipulation, and poor me type narratives. Why do so many narcissists end up alone or surrounded by people who secretly resent them? And I said, like, really, pretty much, like, everything we've talked about so far. Like, if your basic mode of operation is to suck the life out of other people, like, what do you expect? Yeah, no. Um, um, the demons incarnate. And even though I'm an apologist for some narcissists, particularly ones that are cute. Um, if your yep, if your whole existence revolves around draining, controlling, and invading people, then yeah, when the beauty fades, when the charm wears thin, when people finally wise up, you're left with a wake of emptiness. Demons don't age gracefully. They just end up without hosts. What would you say to someone who's starting to second guess their decision to go no contact with a narcissist? I said run, run, but I can't just leave it at that. Like I've I've broken my own rules before. The standard advice is don't go back, but um I mean, you could get to a point where you understand the rules of the game so well that you break them on purpose, and stuff like that. But I can't, like, I don't know which point to bring up first here, but it's like I can't tell people, yeah, like I can't really tell people like, yeah, just run, just don't get involved with them, just like don't. Sometimes like people have to be entangled with them, like they don't have any choice, like they literally like they have to be entangled with them. Other times like people they want to like be around them in some capacity. Like sometimes you want to fuck them. You know what I mean? And there are there are narcs that that I still make excuses for, and I still keep around in arm's reach because it's like um from it's like, I mean, to some people it's like a drug, that it's a different type of intensity to the relationship. And like if you understand your own mental health and you understand narcissism and like you want to date narcissists, and you're an adult, you know what I mean? Like there's an intensity there that's um but like overall, like I'm moving away from that shit. You know what I mean? The narcs in my life that I'm still kind of like keeping in arm's reach are the ones that kind of like entered my life organically and stuff like that, and worked really hard to make an impression on me. But like I'm not like I'm not seeking. I'm seeking like normal. Like I am seeking like a normal person, like myself at this time. I say normal. I am seeking a non-narcissist at this point in my life. Um, but yeah, if you're trying to, if you want to start dancing with a narcissist, like just know what you're getting into. That's all. Know what the power dynamics are. Know who has the cards and stuff like that, and know how you'll react to specific things and stuff like that. But like, I don't really. But even still, then it becomes hard to enter those situations without becoming the manipulator yourself, because really, like the only game that narcissists understand and respect is like the game itself, right? So like if the only way to deal with them is to become like really aware of manipulation and power plays and stuff like that, so you can deal with them on their level, on their turf, then you're really not separating yourself that much from them, right? You're like, oh, let me learn how they operate so that I can dance with them. And in that dance, you're probably going to be operating like them. Um, though you don't have to. You don't have to. It's complex, y'all. It really is. Um, what's one thing that people misunderstand about narcissists that actually gives them more power than they deserve? I said most of the time they're not that good. Most of the time they're not that good at manipulating. Um, like their manipulation only works because humans are the good ones. Um, we their manipulation works because we generally don't expect people to be evil. Um, a lot of the times, these people are scared, weak, barely competent individuals who bully their way and steal people's ideas to look competent themselves. They use others to prop them up. They use a lot of smoke and mirrors. That doesn't mean some of them aren't really freaking good at what they do. Um, it just means that they're never the gods that they portray themselves to be. Um, they're never as grand as the mythology surrounding them. What role does shame play in the narcissist behavior, and how does it show up even when they act shameless? I said I don't, I've heard contradictory things in regards to shame. Um, on one hand, they're rumored to be highly ashamed of themselves, but yet they will deny it and act shamelessly. Um, it's one of those oxymorons about them where like confidence, like people say their outward expression of overconfidence stems from a inner lack of confidence type thing. Um, I mean, it's they are paradoxical in multiple ways, and they're and this is one of the examples, right? Some of the characteristics that are consistently shown outward are believed to be lacking inwardly. Um, why is it so hard for outsiders, friends, family, even therapists to truly understand the depth of what it's like living with a narcissist? And I said because it's difficult to imagine 24/7. Um, you hear about Chinese water drop torture, but until you get 10 million drops in, it's hard to fathom. You know, it's hard to fathom the pain until you're a million until you're actually it's 24/7, that insistent nature. It's every breakfast, every lunch, every gathering, every holiday, every TV show, every event, everything is molded to be about them and in their image and how does narcissistic abuse change the way you experience silence? Moments when nothing is being said. What does that space? I guess it depends on their proximity to you during that silence. What's something narcissists do that would be seen as completely normal or even charming if someone didn't know what to look for? The unwillingness to let a conversation die organically. That is an easy tell. When they have to have the last word, or when they keep re-engaging the conversation, um, that's that's a good tell. Um, what does hoovering mean in the context of narcissistic abuse, and why do so many people fall? Um, what does hoovering mean? Apparently, it's named after the vacuum. Um, it is their post rejection way of trying to suck you back in. And interestingly enough, when I first learned about the technique, I read it as hovering, which is just as like true. Um, because that is what they do. They will hover around you, and they'll try to figure out when the best time to insert themselves again is. Um, just wanted to see how you're doing. All right, question 22. Like I said, I got 25 of these. So, what's a subtle way narcissists make you feel like the crazy one, even when they're the one causing chaos? I mean, we all know about the gaslighting phenomenon, right? I wrote about it in my book. It's in this one right here. Um, I am sorry, I'm shamelessly promoting a product here. But yeah, this is mental health and secular dating. Um, and I have a chapter in here on on narcissism and and but yeah, they the term gaslighting comes from the movie where the man, he would shut off the gaslight at at, at night and then question, or he would turn on the gaslight at night and then question his wife in the morning as to why she left it on. And she was certain that she shut it off, and he would do this periodically until she began to question, like, and like if that's, and the thing is, it's not just about that, it's to also make you question your ability to perceive reality, because now you're questioning, well, if I got that wrong, like what else am I getting wrong? You know what I mean? If I'm leaving this gaslight on all the time, like what else, and forgetting, like what else is my brain doing, like what else am I wrong about, type of thing, right? um and then another subtle way is a term that I don't see, in it's not in their lexicon of terminology, but they'll engage in something like reality shaping. um they'll describe the dynamics of a situation to you in their interpreted way, and then anything that you say or express that deviates from that will be punished, and anything that you say that confirms that, say or do that confirms that, will be, praised and rewarded. um and they will continuously reaffirm these realities, right? Like, that was such a great trip. That was such a great trip. Remember that great trip we had when everybody was happy? And they'll keep trying to reaffirm this. And then um, it's reality shaping. Reality shaping. Reframing every moment to suit their ego. Um, how does narcissistic parenting affect a child's sense of self-worth even long into adulthood? And it can absolutely shatter it if the child isn't either extremely lucky or extremely um, resilient. That child needs to be resilient as hell, and the narcissist has to be one that is he got, in the narcissist world, he's unlucky because he got the child that could not be consumed. He got the child that could not be Um, yeah. So you gotta be lucky, chosen, resilient, something like that. And um because it's impossible to imagine what an entire lifetime of being dismissed does. You know what I mean? In little ways and stuff like that. Um oh, what are some internal habits or coping mechanisms that survivors of narcissistic abuse often carry into other relationships without realizing? Um, I mean, besides from attachment issues, of course, I have heard theories that ADHD is born from victims of narcissistic abuse disassociating. And ChatGPT agreed with me on that, saying there's a school of thought that says what looks like ADHD in some adults might actually be trauma responses, especially in survivors of long-term narcissistic abuse. There's overlap in there's overlap in hypervigilance, mistaken for distractibility, disassociation, mistaken for daydreaming. Yeah, that does make sense. And emotional dysregulation, mistaken for impulsivity. Yeah, that chalks. That chalks up. Um, Over explaining themselves, walking on eggshells, apologizing for things they didn't do, and feeling guilty when they express needs. What's okay? There's 27. Okay, and this is 25. What's one myth about yourself that you had to unlearn after growing up with or being close to a narc? Something I touched on a previous episode, which is I don't owe people my attention. Plain and simple. Like my attention is my choice, and I put it where I want. And if I don't want to pay attention to people, I don't have to pay attention to people. Um, and looking back on everything you learned and lived through, Bangkok, what would you say to your younger self, the one who was still under the influence, but didn't know it yet? I say that's a tough question. On one hand, you would want to tell your younger self everything. Um, but on the other hand, he was strong enough to survive. He or she was strong enough to survive. Um, so why risk telling them anything that might blow that up? Why risk, putting just just that little bit more of a burden in their mind on their shoulders? Like, what if your younger self wasn't ready to hear the truth at 15? You know what I mean? So maybe if we're talking about like survivors, if we're talking about people who like came out the other side and saw what they went through and learned from it and grew from it, then maybe you don't tell them anything going back in time, right? If somebody, hmm, if somebody hearing this conversation is just starting to wake up to the truth about narcissists in their life, what's one thing you hope they take away from your experience? Um, I said they should start doing research, but like honestly, it's like they're not as powerful as you think more times than not. You could fuck with their ego, you could fuck with them. Um, like I don't do anything offensively to them. Everything that I do in regards to narcs is defensive. Um, but yeah, and again, it really depends. Like you say, narcissist, but like it really depends on like the power dynamics. Like it really depends. Like, are we talking about siblings, parents, or partners, or coworkers, or even children? But not so much children. Like even children. Like if you're an older adult and your children are narcissistic and stuff like that. But because that can have its own problems too, right? Your voice could be completely muted if you're an elder and you have a narcissist taking care of you, then that could be its own problems too, right? um so it does depend on like the power dynamics for sure, the problems that are going to arise and the ways to deal with them and stuff like that. But this, for the sake of this questionnaire, it was in regards to people that you don't really, people who have power over you, who have the power dynamics over you. That's what um, these questions were applicable to. Okay. um I hope you guys got something good out of this, and this won't be like the last that I touch on this subject. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about it, like I said, the way of Ecudes, mental health, and secular dating. I touch on narcissism. I touch on BPD. I touch on ADHD. I touch on addiction, um, and kind of how this relates to monogamy or a case against it, actually. Um, Also, furthermore, I have decided um, the day before yesterday, I made the decision that um, because after my most recent book, 2020, um, after my most recent book, um, reviewing 2020, I thought I was going to be done writing books, but a couple days ago, I did get an idea for another one. Um, and it's going to be uh, pretty much just about a narc, and so that's definitely something that look out for down the pipelines and stuff like that. But anyways, y'all, like I said, I hope y'all got something good out of this, and God willing, I'll be back next Wednesday for another show. Cool, cool. Goodbye.